The Free Agents podcast contains mature themes and adult language. Any discussion of gambling is for entertainment purposes only. Please abide by all laws in your location regarding gambling.
Can we start?
This week on The Free Agents.
You can't deny his credentials just because he came out and made this announcement. I think it's the right move.
Goran Dragic, Kyle Lowry. Those are names that come to mind.
Westbrook went out and he just took over that team and basically kept them on the same track they were going on, and he had one of the best months of January in NBA history.
Welcome to the Free Agent Sports Podcast. I'm Joe Smarge, and joining us in studio this week, LJ returns to the studio. How you doing, LJ?
I am happy to be back in studio.
Yeah, it's nice. There was no snowstorm this week, and I'm not sick.
Not until Thursday.
Yeah, and apparently Chris Curtis is joining us via Skype, and he somehow got my plague.
Yeah, I'm kind of pissed at him for it.
I'm sorry, Chris.
Plague.
You really tried.
I
was in a bubble, dude. There was a plastic sheet in here and everything. It was amazing.
You can keep it. I don't want it.
Well, anyway. Now, who's going to draft Michael Sam?
Oh, well, a lot of NFL teams are looking at him. I mean, not just based on a, sexual orientation standpoint, just, based on a talent standpoint.
SEC Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny his credentials just because he came out and made this announcement. I think it's the right move, coming out and making this announcement now, as opposed to waiting until after he gets drafted.
Oh, this needed to happen, and I think his timing was impeccable.
Yes.
I honestly do. I think his timing was amazing. I thought, wow, this kid nailed the timing of this whole thing, because now it all gets to be processed. He gets to go through the combine and show his skills. He was a leader on his team. He got voted team MVP. He was the leader in sacks. His team did well. He came out of a good situation. He's big, tall, strong, and black. He is the opposite of every stereotype you could think of for gay. Mm-hmm. And he is walking into a situation that has never been walked into before.
Yeah, and actually one thing that was discovered before all this came about, before the announcement and all that, he was actually hiding this from his Missouri teammates for 3 years. Yep. And finally just decided that, okay, out with it. It's time to, get it done and get it out there. And his team fully supported him the entire time. And it was nice to hear that story. And, he's a good player. He's a very good defensive player. He's going to make some serious disruptions on any offensive line he comes in contact with. It's going to be fun to watch.
And, and now everybody that, in the future, this won't be a big deal.
Right.
But this needs to happen. This needs to play out. There will be assholes out there that will say things. There will be some dick in the locker room that says something. There'll be fans, because like we saw with Marcus Smart, there will be fans that'll say things to him. And all of this stuff is going to happen, and it all needs to play out. So down the road, the next people won't have the same situation.
Yeah, and even, it honestly won't be that big a deal come the locker room, because the thing is anybody that drafts him is probably going to have a meeting with their players and just be like, hey, look, this is the situation we drafted ourselves into. This is how you're going to handle it. And any locker room with even a decent bit of maturity, with the exception of maybe Miami, will be just fine with it.
Dante Stallworth said it best. He goes, if your organization is strong to begin with, this won't be an issue.
Right.
But if your organization is weak to begin with, this will be an issue, and don't even bother drafting the kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And jumping off of that, speaking of football and jumping into another weak situation, how about the Cleveland Browns situation?
Well, they've now gotten rid of Chud and the guys that hired him.
Yeah.
And they got rid of Lombardi and Lombardi's president. And
it's baffling, because Lombardi, he's made decent moves over the past few weeks.
These weren't decent moves. These were he made good moves all the way through. Yeah. He had a good draft. Mingo turned out to be a star. He ended up getting rid of their dead weight in Trent Richardson and got a number 1 draft pick in return. Hoyer was a good pickup on the cheap that worked out, but the kid got hurt. I mean, the pieces in Cleveland are in place for a winner. The fact is, I don't know why the owner turned on him. Something must have happened. Someone must have said something somewhere, because everybody got stabbed in the back. I'm waiting to hear what Lombardi has to say.
There's got to be more to this, because I mean that the way it was working, the decisions that were being made by Lombardi weren't bad decisions, as you said. There's got to be more to this from an owner standpoint as to what exactly happened, and it'll be, like you said, it'll be interesting to see in the next few weeks what actually comes out of Cleveland. But Cleveland's a mess, and the owner.
They're not really now. I mean, they're coming into a draft with a good pick. They have a GM in place. They've got the coach that they want in place. Now maybe they're going to be satisfied enough to actually. I mean, this is a team with talent. I mean, you insert a quarterback in there like Blake Bortles or any of these guys, and you let them learn on the job with the weapons that are in place. This team in 3 years with the weapons in the right is going to be a perennial playoff contender just because they're good on defense. They're going to have a young quarterback on a rookie contract. Josh Gordon, Cameron Jordan. They get themselves a running back along the way. This is going to be a team that's going to be back in the mix.
Well, the thing if I was in Cleveland, I'd be pissed off, because the thing is anytime somebody makes something positive happen with your team, the ownership just decides to kind of, do away with them. I mean, look at Chud. There was no reason in a million years why he should have been fired after 1 year.
Yeah, we don't need to reboot the Chud situation. But this whole thing now that we know that it was a whole changing of the guard that was getting ready to happen, that's it. Now, reboot time.
Yeah, I still don't agree with it, but it is what it is. So I'm not happy with Cleveland. So.
Well, I mean, a little closer to home, across state lines, we go into Michigan and Detroit. We're coming up to the All-Star break, and Detroit fired their former All-Star coach.
For those that didn't hear, Sunday morning, Maurice Cheeks was let go as head coach of the Pistons. The interim head coach, the assistant coach at the time, John Lawyer, is taking up coaching duties. And honestly, I mean, he very well, in the way he goes about his business, from everything I'm seeing and everything I'm hearing, there is a very good chance that he may be an actual head coach of this team in the future. I don't know if they'll remove his interim tag before the end of the season, but I don't know if LG, you got to see their game against the Spurs, but they looked like a completely different team.
Well, I mean, it's all going to come down to Brandon Jennings and floor spacing and, as Jalen Rose likes to say, geometry. They need floor spacing. They need these players. They're crowded down low.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening, and that we know what the issue is, and there needs to be space created in Detroit for them to allow their young players to grow together. So there's there's a piece clogging up the middle still.
Yeah. Yep. And that piece is definitely one Greg Monroe, who has been really, he's a restricted free agent in the summer. And honestly, I can't see the Pistons said they'll actually start matching max offer sheets on him, and I don't understand that at all. But from a front office standpoint, it looks like Joe Dumars may not be back after this season, which is something that Pistons fans have been waiting for a while. The owner Tom Gores said basically that they are not conducting a search until after the season is over for a new head coach. So I don't know if that's maybe them giving Lawyer his chance to actually take over this team and see what he can do, or if they are legitimately looking to not have Dumars make the next hire. So should be interesting.
Well, if they want to move into the next, analytical age in the NBA, Joe Dumars has to go, and they need to bring in a new regime. Because and this team, they don't have there's two guys on this squad, Jennings and Smith, that the analytics guys do not like. Mm-hmm. And so but in order to make it work, these are guys that you're going to have in a long-term contract. If some sort of miracle can happen and Josh Smith can somehow be traded to Boston for Jeff Green and a couple of other, maybe a draft pick or something else.
Well, something I noticed whenever the game was with the Spurs, when I was watching that game, Josh Smith did not take a lot of jump shots. And when he did, they were decent jump shots, still close enough to the net where he's in his range. For whatever reason, the lawyer put a leash on him and basically told him to work down low, and it actually worked. So it remains to be seen if that's just a one-game thing or if that's a continued thing. We'll see. But he actually played pretty well, Smith did, that night. Wow. And beat a Spurs team which had the only key piece they were missing was Ginobili. So it's not like Popovich was sitting everybody. So it could be interesting.
Well, they're going to be in the contention for a playoff spot just because. Mm-hmm. I mean, now that the Sixers have decided to lose by 40 points a night.
Right.
What's going on? This is amazing tankage, and it's not even the best tankage that's out there right now. Milwaukee is still the king of tanking. The Sixers, even with their misery, even with everything they're going to do, even with they might trade Thad Young, they're probably going to trade Evan Turner.
Yeah.
Spencer Hawes would look good in a Clippers uniform. The Clippers, if they want to go over the top, need to trade for Spencer Hawes. That's who they need to trade for. They need another guy down low, and he's a stretch center. He can play the stretch 4 and the stretch 5. He can spell both Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, and he's got a ton of NBA experience, and he's not a miserable clubhouse guy.
And the scary part about the Clippers is that even without Hawes or without anything like that, they actually are looking at a very possible 3 seed. Their game against Philadelphia when they got Chris Paul back was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, they went out there and it was, but it was more like the Sixers were not the Sixers. They were the Washington Generals against the Globetrotters. I mean, they were throwing the ball off the backboard and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. I was waiting for Chris Paul to start dribbling around the floor like Curly Neal used to and sliding around and doing all that other stuff. And then it's just silly what's going on with the Sixers, but the heck with it. They're going to trade away. Evan Turner's probably going to end up like San Antonio, Oklahoma City. One of these big teams has the cap space in the room and the need for another scorer like Evan Turner. And that's where he can end up because they have draft picks, and that's what the Sixers are looking for, draft picks. Yeah. And the Sixers are going to be the dumping spot for salaries.
Yeah.
You're going to see, because they need to actually, they're under the cap. Like below there's a base floor.
There's a minimum.
They're below the floor.
So they have a problem there.
They need to get if they don't reach the floor, they split the money amongst the players.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's a huge deal. Mm-hmm. But if they don't reach that floor, they're going to have to cough up a little cash. Whatever the difference is between where they are and what the floor was. So they're just going to have to give out the money. They don't get to keep it.
Yeah.
And, if they trade a few more players and some D-League guy comes up and gets a nice cut of that money, he's going to be feeling good because the Sixers are a joke. They're literally looking to have the worst record, the most weighted ball so they can get the best pick. They've said it, and they've said it over and over and over again. But go ahead.
Here's a thought as well. The beginning of the season, there was an article put out, the anonymous GM article. And do you think it might have been Philly?
What, that they weren't, that they are planning on tanking?
That they would be tanking? Because, 40 points a night, that's a little bit too obvious, you'd think.
You would think, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and speculate, but they are literally going off the rails. It's kind of, I'm a Sixers fan. It's very disconcerting.
It's not
you
like
watch and you're like, well, and then you think, all right, next year will be better. One
thing for sure, it's not like they lost like this to bad teams. Golden State and LA are both very good teams. And it's just a matter of, would something like this happen against a team like something Milwaukee or, Detroit? Something like that. So somebody in the East, I want to see them go back out East and see what happens with Philly and see if they're doing the same thing. So
they do have victories over Miami this year.
Yeah. Victories, plural.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think it's tough for all these teams that are trying to get to the lottery. I finally put on a Celtics game the other day. They're playing Sacramento, and they won with Rondo on the bench. And I'm still thinking maybe they should try to get rid of Rondo because they're still winning all these games. And they're trying to beat teams like,
You do not get rid of Rondo. The fact is that Sacramento just has issues. That's just all there is to it. They've got Isaiah Thomas. They got little Isaiah Thomas.
Right.
They got Rudy Gay, who's been better since he's been gone to Sacramento, but he's still Rudy Gay. Mm-hmm. And DeMarcus Cousins, but they haven't had any cohesion. They don't have a plan. They really need a guard. That's what Sacramento needs. But let's talk about the good teams.
Yeah.
Who's the All NBA team right now? Who's your starting point guard?
Team? Well, let's
Who is
start at the point.
Who is the best point guard?
Yeah, point guard. I was just going to start there. Got to be, even though he's been injured for a while, got to be Chris Paul.
No. I'm talking about best point guard this year.
Best point guard this year.
Not that we're taking into account past. We're not taking into account.
Okay.
Best point guard this year.
Best point guard this year. That's actually Give me yours. Give me a second.
Goran Dragic, Kyle Lowry. Those are names that come to mind.
That was actually the second your ladder pick was going to be mine. There was Lowry. I mean,
Lowry's he's the best point guard in the East right now. Best point guard in the West, Steph Curry. I mean, you can give it to Steph Curry right now. The way he's been playing.
Yeah, those two should be starting for both sides, East and West in the All-Star game. That's for sure. But I think Lowry's my pick just because of what Toronto's been able to do with his, I don't know, nobody really expected them to be good, and they're up the ladder somewhat in the East right now, which is impressive for them.
John Wall, Damian Lillard.
He was a surprise for me, is John Wall as well. Because Washington wasn't really supposed to be that good either, and Wall, he's developed. He's kind of blossomed a little bit more than I thought he was going to. Honestly, after the first couple of years he was in the league, so
John Wall is in beast mode right now.
Absolutely.
That's what he's in. He's playing very well. This Washington team is better than we expected, and they're going to be they might steal a game or two against Miami in a series if they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because they're big enough down low with Nene and Morcine Gortat, and they can give some issues to Miami down low. They've got some wing guys they can throw at LeBron, and John Wall can just take it to the hole at will against a guy like Dwayne Wade.
So I gave you my Kyle Lowry pick. Who's your point guard?
Steph Curry.
Steph Curry. Okay.
You gotta give it to Steph Curry.
Yeah. All right.
And I would give it to Goran Dragic after Curry too.
Okay.
And then Damian Lillard before. And Lowry, of course, is the East.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true. But give me your two.
My two is going to be Paul George because he's listed as a deuce. I'm cheating there. It's kind of just cheating.
That is yeah.
But James Harden would be the other one. Obviously he's a shooting guard.
I think isn't Lance Stevenson listed as a 2 as well?
Oh, Lance Stevenson is a shooting guard, but you can't give it to him yet. He's not consistent enough.
Yeah, he's been playing.
DeMar DeRozan, he's listed as a shooting guard too, but he's more small forward.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right on the money with that Harden pick. I like Stevenson. I do think he should have been an All-Star this year, and I think it was one of the biggest All-Star snubs that was out there, along with Lowry and along with Drummond. But yeah, Harden's not a bad play there. That's for sure.
Now your forward spots, small forward and power forward, you need to give one to Durant and one to LeBron. Because.
That's exactly who I was going to give it to.
And that's why you have to give that shooting guard spot to Paul George.
That makes sense.
And then you give the point guard spot to Steph Curry, and then you've got one of the greatest teams of all time.
Yeah.
And then at center, you put, who are you going to put at center?
Oh, center? Honestly, the way he's been playing on a pretty bad team, I'm going to go hometown here. I'm going to give it to Drummond. Honestly, Drummond's been playing ridiculous this season. He really has.
He's been a beast, but Anthony Davis has been a bigger beast. But and DeMarcus Cousins has been a beast, and LaMarcus Aldridge has been a beast. If you're going to go straight offense, you go Aldridge. If you're going to go with a mix, if you're going to go straight defense, you go Drummond.
Well, there was a list that was put out during the broadcast of the.
But Hibbert
the other night.
Is the best of both worlds when it comes to there. But he's fallen off lately. But Dwight Howard has got to be considered the elite center in the league right now, right?
Yeah. Dwight Howard's definitely the elite center. But I saw a stat the other night. and there was a list of guys that have 20 points, 15 rebounds, and 2 blocks, those kind of games. And Anthony Davis had 14. Drummond was right behind him with 13. I think Howard had 12. So, I mean, you can't go wrong with any of those 3 picks.
No, you really can't, especially in your future.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, God, Drummond is going to be a beast. And once he realizes his offensive game and gets any kind of grasp of an offensive game, forget about it. This is a guy that could average 25 and 15.
Yep.
I mean, literally can do along with a good four blocks a game. Yeah. He's that athletic. He moves that well. I mean, the center position is going to be rich for a few years.
Yeah. All right. Give me. The only one we didn't touch on was the 4.
The 4 has to. I told you it has to be. It has to be LeBron James.
That's the 3, the small forward, right?
No, well, then it has to be Kevin Durant.
Okay.
You can't leave Durant and LeBron off your team. You have to put one at the 4 and one at the 3 just because of who they are.
Yep. That's a good point.
I mean, Kevin Love. Sorry, Carmelo Anthony. Sorry, Dirk Nowitzki. Sorry, LaMarcus Aldridge. Sorry, Serge Ibaka. Sorry, Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin, you've had a huge year. Yep. All right, let's make a second team.
Yeah, if there was a second team,
if Curry is on your first team,
Billy Griffin.
If Curry's on your first team, you could put Dragic or Chris Paul on your second team, realistically, a point guard.
Yep.
And then second team, I mean, Harden, we put Paul George on the first team.
Yeah.
So we can put Harden at shooting guard on the second team.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or Dwayne Wade. I mean, Dwayne Wade is always a viable option.
Yeah.
And DeMar DeRozan, and you've had some other guys that have had good seasons, and you mentioned Lance Stevenson. He's just a freak of nature. All right, small forward, then you can put Carmelo, or you can put Paul George in his obvious spot. I mean, those are where those guys would go.
Yeah, Blake Griffin at the 4 would be my pick.
Yeah, you'd have to go this year. Blake has had a better season than Kevin Love.
Yep.
And then at center, you would go one of the guys that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, somebody other than Dwight Howard, because Dwight Howard, is right there. You can go Anthony Davis, you can go Andre Drummond, you can go
Hibbert.
A whole bunch of different ways.
Yeah, so. You can go different ways. The NBA is pretty rich with talent. They just need to rebalance things. Right now, you got too many people. You got too many people trying to lose.
Yeah, that's a fair enough point.
Too many teams trying to lose.
I think they should just play horse for draft picks.
That would be
great. Just have one your best shooter from each team come out. And
that wouldn't be fair. Oklahoma City and Golden State would get everything because it'd be Durant versus Curry.
It's just horse, LJ. Their worst player could beat any of us any day, dude.
Well, did you guys see the dunks LeBron was doing online? LeBron, there's a video online right now.
I saw it.
Yeah, I saw
of
that.
LeBron throwing the ball off the frigging gym walls.
Stanchion, the pillar that supports the
pillars
gym
up top
from the side of the court, and it comes back and
then grabbing it and jamming it, and I'm like, he's not going to be in the dunk contest.
Yeah, and that's the reason. That's the reason right there why the dunk contest is going south.
Well, I mean, they do have Paul George in it this year. They've got Ben McLemore is supposed to be attempting a 720 dunk. That's never been done in the dunk contest, and so I mean it's going to be interesting. There's some good young talent going to be in it,
right?
But you watch LeBron do something like that, and you go, why can't he be in it? Why can't he be in it? And why can't we move the rim up like a few feet and then let Dwight Howard get back in, let Durant get in, let everybody raise the rim some, let these guys get creative. Because these guys right now, I mean, when LeBron's dunking, his chest is up to the rim. Sometimes he just gets such ridiculous height, it's not even fair. So raise the rim. Let's have some fun.
Make it really interesting.
And then, I mean, do the All-Star game like we just did. How about we just choose teams?
Yeah.
How about you go first? All right. You get LeBron. All right. You pick next. All right. You get Durant. All right. You pick next. All right. I get Steph Curry. All right. You pick next.
Well,
all right. I'll take Chris Paul. You pick
take a look at what the Pro Bowl did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let Magic Johnson.
The NHL All-Star game's the same way.
Let Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan pick teams.
There you go.
Or somebody who's more entertaining than Magic and Michael, because really those two aren't that entertaining.
We'll have Charles Barkley pick a team.
Yes. Barkley and Larry Bird.
There you go.
Just for the honesty from both of them. He's like, you can picture Bird going, I didn't draft this guy because I thought he'd have some issues. And I still think he has some issues, but at this point in this picking process, I will take Carmelo Anthony.
Smarge, you had an idea regarding the All-Star game. Fire it away.
Well, it's kind of the same thing that I was talking about for the draft or for the lottery. It's just to have the captains come out and just shoot around a horse for the first pick, and then just pick, just like you said, just like schoolyard rules, just like we used to play football or
Adam Sandler schoolyard bullshit. Okay.
Yeah, I think that kind of grips people. That's made the Pro Bowl more interesting. I actually want to see who they're picking, and then I don't really care about the game.
Now, the 3-point shooting contest should really be a distance shooting contest. I heard this on another podcast. Someone else mentioned it.
It's too easy for them now. They're so strong.
That you need to just be able to...
Should be half court.
All the way in the corner by the half court, all the way
back
by the announcer's booth, all the way, do crazy stuff to make it more interesting, because this is what these guys do at practice.
Yeah.
We saw the crazy dunks. Now we've seen the crazy shots from practice. We've seen what these guys do. Bring the craziness of practice, because people will show up just for practice.
Yeah, it can be more entertaining than the game, depending on how your team plays. So.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, this could definitely be more interesting. And like everybody said, we need to reseed the playoffs, just the top 16 teams by record in the playoffs. That's how the playoffs should be. There shouldn't be Eastern and Western. There should be top 16, and they play, and then the last two teams in the round robin tournament play each other.
Yeah, that would make sense. We wouldn't see a lot of Eastern Conference action. That's for sure. We'd see like 3 teams, I think it is.
Well,
right now.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
You're not good enough. In fact, I don't think we'd see anybody other than Indiana and Miami. Yeah, we wouldn't see anybody but Indiana or Miami come from the East.
Yeah.
Everybody else would be out of it. Not one other team. If we ended the season today and we took the top 16, no, we'd have to take these bad teams. Sorry. Damn it. The top, no, wait a minute now. We're 540. Yeah, their ninth seed is still ahead of anybody in the East, too. So you're out, Charlotte.
Yeah, Detroit's out.
Yeah, I could see that being a problem for the league in terms of, the Eastern Corridor is such a big part of their national ratings.
Well, the Eastern Corridor needs to. The Eastern Corridor needs to start running their teams better. James Dolan is a moron who runs the Knicks.
Yeah, I agree completely.
James Dolan, you have the money, one of the money-makingest franchises of all time in sports, the New York Knicks. You have a city that supports your team. You have big, massive advertising budgets. You have your own network. You have everything going on, and you've run your team in such a bad way. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Yep.
You're an embarrassment. Peyton, we're going to throw back to Peyton Manning. Yes, James Dolan, you're an embarrassment. And all of what you've done with this team is embarrassing.
Yep. Yeah. Well, going away from that, let's talk about midseason awards. Aside from your All-NBA team, give me your midseason MVP at this point.
Kevin Durant.
Yep, I was going to say I have a feeling I know who you're going to pick, and you're not wrong. Kevin Durant's been absolutely ridiculous. Westbrook went out and he just took over that team and basically kept them on the same track they were going on, and he had one of the best months of January in NBA history.
They are 8-2 in their last 10.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. That's all you need to know.
They weren't against slouch teams either.
Nope. They've done it against good competition. They have developed their young players. There was an article about their Reggie Jackson, Jeremy Lamb, all of those young guys that are developing. They're actually contributing now that Westbrook's been out, and it's only going to make them better in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because if you've got a good second unit, that can make a huge difference in the playoffs. Huge differences in the playoffs.
Yep. Wasn't a great rookie crop coming out, but give me your rookie of the year.
Michael Carter-Williams from the disaster of the team that is Philadelphia.
Yeah, he's been the one bright spot on that team, and even Evan Turner's been really disappointing, and it's been that the team has been awful, but he's played really, really well, especially at the beginning of the year. He basically carried that 76ers team to a decent start.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at Oladipo, and
Oladipo's a good pick too. Yep.
You can take a look at him in there. I don't know if anybody else really has stood out.
There really hasn't been any rookie impacts on any real competitive teams.
Well,
So,
there never really is
that.
either. I mean, let's be honest now. If you have a rookie, really contributing on your team, you're probably not that good a team.
Right. That's
or
exactly
you really
right.
got lucky late in the draft.
Yep. And so Carter Williams would be my pick as well. How about your coach of the year?
Jeff Hornacek, Phoenix Suns.
That's not a bad pick either. Yeah.
He's 10 games over 500.
And this is a team that was supposed to be tanking.
They're 7-3 in their last 10, and this is without Eric Bledsoe and his torn meniscus.
Yeah, I was gonna go between him and I can't remember who is actually there in Toronto, but Toronto's for what they are doing, even though they're in the East, they're not doing too bad.
Frank Vogel needs to get some props for what's going on in Indiana.
Yep. Yeah, he won it last year, didn't he? Coach of the year?
I don't even remember who won Coach of the Year last year. To be 100% honest.
Right.
Scott Brooks has done really good things in Oklahoma City. I don't know if we're going to give him credit for Kevin Durant. Popovich is doing what Popovich does every year. It's like giving the award to Belichick when you give it to Popovich. Portland's had a good season, but they're starting to fall off in what they're done.
Yeah, Portland is starting to fall off. I agree with that.
They're coming back to earth. They're starting to see some regression, but I mean, because the East is so bad, they're still going to be able to take advantage of that. But Terry Stotts definitely deserves some credit there.
And actually, it was George Karl last year who won that with the Nuggets.
Yeah, and then he got fired.
Yep. So go figure that one out.
George Karl, what would he do in Detroit?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about, let's go back to coaches, because now we have a vacancy, and I love playing. Let's match up the teams and the systems and all that. And Mark Jackson should get fired in Golden State. I'll say it right now. And he's 10 games over 500, but his team is not reaching their potential, and it's because Mark Jackson's their coach.
Okay. That's fair. I mean, actually,
because his systems that he puts in place do not maximize the weapons he has.
Yeah, I'm actually
there's too much just dribbling around. There's not enough extra passing. There's not enough pacing and spacing. This team could be coached much better than what they're being coached at right now with the talent level they have. They have a rim protector. They have a scoring power forward. They have a guy at the three that can also sub in as point guard. He's a defensive stopper with Iguodala. They have two guys that can shoot the lights out with the ball. They have some issues with Harrison Barnes in their bench, but this is a starting offense problem. Zach Lowe broke it down, and I think it's Mark Jackson's fault.
Yeah, it's not a hard pick. I mean, the issues with Golden State that are keeping them from the top is the fact that they are indeed, like you said, they dribble it around too much. They don't have a lot of set plays, I noticed.
Yes, they turn the ball over a lot too because of all this chaos.
Right. It's organized chaos, at best in the offensive zone, and it doesn't work well for a good and even great basketball team. And Golden State is struggling because of it.
And now, Phoenix with Jeff Hornacek is in the same boat as Golden State with Mark Jackson, and the talent level in Phoenix is nowhere near the talent level in Golden State.
Right. And that should be the comparison right there.
And right there is your difference. And they're sitting there right next to each other in the standings, 9.5 games out of first place.
You mentioned George Karl coming to Detroit. I'm going to deny that, and I'm going to raise you one Lionel Hollins, former coach of the Memphis Grizzlies, who was let go after a second-round playoff exit a year ago. And there's been a lot of talk about him taking over as Detroit's coach, possibly. He said he's interested. However, Detroit has not contacted him. Another option they have as well is taking a look at one Chauncey Billups, because I think he's 38 this year. He's not going to be, a key contributor to this roster other than in a coaching aspect. He's been a player coach for, this entire season. He was a player coach when he was here from I think it was 03 until 08 when he got traded to Denver.
And then he player coached with the Clippers. Really, when he was there with the Clippers with Vinny Del Negro, they used to say that a lot of times the guys were looking to Chauncey before they were looking to Vinny Del Negro.
Yeah.
When he was with the Clippers, so yes, Chauncey had some unofficial player coach experience, but it would be nice for him to sit next to an actual head coach.
Yeah.
And learn from that perspective, because we saw with Jason Kidd that he needed to shake off all of the nonsense and really work through things and get a grip on his team, and it took a while to do it.
Yeah.
And with Chauncey, you'd have to. Yeah, I mean you're looking at another situation where both of these guys were guards with NBA gravitas and had the respect of the players and had the respect of everybody around them and know the game. They just don't know it from the perspective of a head coach.
Right.
And that hurt Jason Kidd, and I don't know if you want to I don't know if you want to throw Chauncey Billups in there.
Jason Kidd scenario, that's the only thing that scares me about the Chauncey Billups possibility. I think, possibly I'll give Lawyer a shot too. Maybe, at the end of the season, if he does a good job, you remove the interim tag, make Chauncey an assistant coach. Make him learn that way. Or you put Hollins there, put Chauncey as the assistant, hit Chauncey and Rasheed on the bench as far as coaching, and either Hollins or Lawyer or,
Well, Lionel Hollins is an old school coach.
Mm-hmm.
He's not known for the analytical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the NBA is going in another direction. He ran a very, the Memphis guys liked him. He was a players coach in Memphis. The guys liked him down there.
Mm-hmm.
He thumped with the ball. He just threw it down low and used, Zebo and Gasol and pounded everybody on defense. It was if that's the type of basketball Detroit's used to, I mean, that's what Larry Brown used to play.
Mm-hmm.
Was grounded and pounding basically was what was what Larry Brown was known for, and that's what this team is built to do, kind of.
Yeah.
You can ground it and pound it with Drummond in them, and I mean Jennings is exciting, more exciting. I don't know though. I mean, if that's the direction you want to go through, that's what you're going to be looking forward to. Is Lionel Hollins style basketball.
We've got the size down low to be able to ground and pound. That's the one thing that's for sure, and it'll just be a matter of how much of Hollins' game in Memphis translates to Detroit as far as the plays that he ran, or how well does the personnel in Memphis transfer to Detroit? That's the other thing too, because I mean the plays were run specifically for that Memphis offense, and it's interesting.
Well, I mean, he would adjust things accordingly, but I mean,
right.
He has a similar style. He brings a certain grounded and pounded type style to to a team. But enough with the coaching stuff.
Yeah.
God, we ran really deep with that, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
We definitely did, guys.
But I mean, Tom Izzo was always going to be mentioned in any job in Michigan. So Detroit will actually probably, you'll hear the Tom Izzo rumors too.
Yep,
keeping it with hoops for a bit, talk a little bit about one issue, one college thing. Joel Embiid, who you, LJ, believe would be possibly the number one pick in the draft, has been facing some knee issues. And I'm starting to wonder, and there's been talk, is he really still going to be this great player, or could he turn out like Greg Oden?
That's exactly what I was thinking when you said that,
Yeah.
is Greg Oden.
Well, he hasn't had any real issues yet. He was icing his knees yesterday, and everybody panicked.
Yeah.
He had a hard game. He just played an overtime game.
Well, I think he's probably he might need a little bit they might have to keep him out of game here or there, LJ, because it sounds like.
Okay. I'm okay with that. Let the big man have some rest. He's young. He's only 4 years into his basketball career. He was a soccer player in Africa. Let the guy have his time here. I'm not panicking yet. It's going to take away my next Hakeem Olajuwon that quick.
We'll see.
Turn him into the next Greg Oden that quickly. Don't do that to me yet.
We'll see what happens come March. How's that?
Yes, I mean this Kansas team is going to coalesce and maybe win a championship in March.
Right.
I mean they lost to Kansas State in overtime last night, but this is a team that can't bring it all together.
Yeah.
They have the talent in place. They just really played a bad game last night, and with the Embiid with the ice on his knees and Wiggins not throwing up a bunch. Yeah, it was a very inefficient night for that Kansas team.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, taking a look. Let's take a look at.
And I mean, let's talk
Yankees
about
prospects.
Marcus Smart got called the N-word, shoved a guy, and then was made to apologize, and that's not right.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to go on the record and say that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Marcus Smart thing. I mean, and apparently, I don't know what kind of investigation Texas Tech was doing into it, but they said they did an investigation into it. This fan has been an issue actually in multiple incidents with Texas Tech basketball games, and it's a little too many coincidences are piling up at the same time here for this guy, and I'm starting.
And he
to
said
side
it.
with
If
Marcus
you
Smart.
read the lips of Marcus Smart, he said, "Don't you ever call me an N again." He said it. That's what he told his That's what he told his coaches on the bench. He called me an N.
Right.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah,
he didn't call him anything else. He made a racial slur to a young man who was on a basketball court in the middle of a heated game, and that he was losing at the time. And that was to get into his head. That's a 50-year-old guy getting into a young man's head, a 19-year-old guy's head.
I think it's ridiculous that he would be made to apologize. I mean, I understand they can't condone players fighting.
And then they suspended
fans.
him.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I guess they suspended him without pay.
It should be the simplest thing in the world.
Anyway.
The only punishment he should have is a statement from the NCAA saying we don't condone fighting fans, and that's it. Right. That's the only thing they should have said about it.
Should have been a slap on
and
the
that's
wrist.
it. And it should be completely trivial. The fact that he had to apologize for reacting to being called something he's probably heard before in his life, and not, clearly not in a good way.
And as I said, this fan has been, the talk of multiple.
Yeah, why can't they do something about this?
Yeah,
if
he needs to be removed.
If I go to the Garden in Boston, an NBA game, and I start that, if I'm, hurling the N-word out of the stands, they're gonna throw me out, dude. I can't stay.
Right.
Like security will get rid of me real fast.
Right. Yeah, I don't care if you're a season ticket holder. I don't care if you drove 6 hours from,
just because the alumni help, support the sports doesn't mean they get to go and abuse players when they're there. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, especially college kids. Pros, they have a little bit of tolerance towards that because pros know how to handle their business. When you're doing that to college kids, 19-year-old kids who are still very impressionable and really haven't even hit the pros or haven't hit the ceiling of their potential or maturity level for that matter, that's ridiculous.
And the price of your ticket doesn't give you carte blanche to start calling everybody names.
Right.
Let's be honest now. As Bill Simmons was pointing out, they used to say a lot worse shit at the Garden back in the day.
Oh, no doubt.
When he was
back
a
in
kid.
the day, yeah.
And the stuff that they used to yell at the players at the Garden, Bill Simmons said, nowadays it's so much nicer at basketball games. He goes, I go to Clipper games, and you you don't hear the fans go off on players. He goes, it happens at hockey games. He goes, I go to Kings games with my daughter, and she actually yells at the goalie and everything else, and it's still kind of a tradition in hockey.
Right.
But I mean, in hockey, you've seen guys go into the stands. You've seen coaches go into the stands in hockey.
Well, and it's one thing to call a player a bum because he didn't show up while you're watching the game and he sucked, and to jeer at him. But when you start making it about race and stuff, it's not. It's ridiculous. It's out of line.
When you start with the name calling,
yeah.
If you look at Marcus Smart and you go, you don't have a 4 head, you got a 10 head. You got a 5 head. You start making fun of his appearance.
Yeah,
and you start doing stuff like that.
At all.
You can, and you start getting into the racial slurs. No, then you're making it personal, and it's not a basketball thing. And then I understand you're trying to get into his head, and you understand the shit talking, but that should be amongst players where there's a mutual respect.
Right.
I mean, Larry Bird had utter contempt for anybody he played against when he was on the floor with him. He was like, Dominique Wilkins was talking about how when he first got into the league and he was guarding Larry Bird and Bird came down and dropped a 3 in his face, he goes, you don't belong in this league yet. Came down, hit another jump shot in his face. He goes, yep, I told you don't belong in this league yet.
Yeah.
That's the type of stuff. Okay, yes, talk some junk because you're good at the game. But this is a 50-year-old guy going to a college basketball game. You're 50 years old. Your youth is over. Get over it.
Right.
Adjust.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Learn to live like a normal human being.
I think the three of us are unanimously on Marcus Smart's side here, and there should not have been any kind of punishment from the NCAA, in my opinion, over this.
It was awful.
So, yep.
Yeah, and the NCAA missed an opportunity. I think they, when they do this all the time, it's just such a poorly run organization. They could have been out in front of this and made themselves look really good and say, well, we don't condone fighting fans and stuff like that. this is out of control and the schools need to do something about it and do something about some of these fans.
Well, the conferences just need to get together and create their own tournament. And
Yes,
sell it to CBS.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what they need to do. The NCAA tournament will now be called the College Basketball Championship Tournament.
Yeah.
And then we will take all the teams that don't want to participate in the NCAA nonsense anymore, and we have created our own thing. The ACC, the SEC, all of these powerful conferences are getting these teams together, and that's the future. Is they're going to tell the NCAA to go to hell.
Yep.
I hope they do. Governing body.
I don't even know that it'll be that big of a fight, LJ, because really the NCAA basically is in the pockets of the schools that have the big programs with big TV contracts, and they, ultimately it's an organization of the schools. So they dictate what happens. They'll just dissolve. I don't even know that it'll be a fight. They'll just dissolve.
Well,
the
they're going to need another governing body. They're going to need another.
They'll establish a new one.
They're going to need another group that picks the tournaments. I mean, they already dictate all the seedings. The NCAA really only has a huge say when bad things happen and when the NCAA tournament gets seeded.
Yeah. Here's a thought as well. My opinion of Texas Tech has gone downhill with this as well, because it was a Texas Tech fan that did it, and apparently Texas Tech conducted their own investigation, and the results basically were something to the effect of there were no racial slurs fired at Marcus Smart from the fan in question. And we know, the three of us know, just based on reading Marcus Smart's lips, that was an absolute crock of shit from Texas Tech, and they're completely defending this fan, even though he is the root of what exactly happened.
If you're writing checks, you're going to defend the guy.
Yeah.
He's writing checks.
And the conclusion was basically that they couldn't hear anything.
He reminds me of one of these asshole boosters you see in Texas. You see these guys, they had that character in Friday Night Lights, Buddy Garrity, that was this guy.
Yeah.
A guy that was past his prime, that's walking around with his old championship ring, and he can't let anything go, and he wants to go and root and be a pervert and stare at cheerleaders.
Right.
But the investigation was such a crock, too, because I believe they claimed that they went and they listened to whatever audio that they had been recording for the game from TV, and they couldn't hear it on the parabolic mic, so it couldn't have happened, which is ridiculous, because we know it sounds, to the viewer, it sounds like it picks up everything, but it really doesn't. It gets a lot of the crowd, and if you're screaming and yelling, it may get you on there. But, yeah, I agree, Chris. I'm not a great lip reader, but he was